Alright, bit overdue, but ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Hold My Nuggets Incorporated for your 2019 NFL Week 15 post-game analysis show. I am your host, the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual, the Chiseled Adonis. Now, I know this should have transpired, or I should say this should have been posted on Tuesday. Hell, it could have been posted on Wednesday, but the boy was a little bit busy. Alright, I had a lot of stuff going on, but we back here now, and coincidentally, you know, there is no Thursday Night Football, so since everything's pushed back to Saturday, I guess everything plays out well. So you can catch the post-game analysis, and then you can see the pre-game analysis that I'll probably be posting tomorrow. But Week 15 was very interesting. All right, they had a couple of upsets. They had a couple of games that, you know, changed the implications of the playoffs. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself from first game to last game. And let's start with that first game. The Baltimore Ravens clinching the AFC North with a win over the New York Jets. Pardon me. Winning 42-21. What I tell you, I said in the second quarter the Jets would try to make things interesting, and that'd be the only quarter in which, you know, they actually look as if they can possibly make, you know, a comeback. I said Baltimore would start out good. Indeed, they did. Lamar Jackson, once again, a virtuoso performance. 15-23, 212 yards and 5 TDs on the ground. He also ran for 86 yards and eclipsed, you know, Michael Vick's record for the most rushing yards in a season for the Jets. It looked very inept all game long. But I'll say this much. Baltimore's defense is giving me a little bit of a cause to pause for how far this team can go. Because, let's just be honest, although the score was 42-21, didn't it seem odd that the Jets were marching into Baltimore territory, I think their first 4 of their 5 drives? Didn't that seem a little bit bothersome? It seems as if they were moving down the field seamlessly, as if there was no sort of, you know, they didn't need to put in a lot of effort in order to get into Baltimore territory. For Baltimore's defense, I'm a little bit concerned there, because there's no reason why the Jets should have been marching down the field. Although they failed to get into the end zone, in the playoffs, you see much better offenses. And defenses can continue to bend and not break. But when you see those elite defenses, they will force you to break. There's no reason why the Jets should be marching down the field, you know, with ease. Now, granted, coming into this game, I believe they were winners of 4 of their last 5 as well. So it's not as if that momentum completely subsided. But for Baltimore's defense, I'd like to see them, you know, play much more, or I should say play a little bit tighter down the stretch. Third downs, second downs, and long. Darnold was able to connect to his targets multiple times, so that was kind of interesting. But for the most part, it was necrophilia. Baltimore took care of business. Good victory for them. Bears taking on the Packers. This was a tough one for Chicago fans, because down the stretch, I mean, if the tight end, I believe it was the tight end or the fullback, saw Allen Robinson on the last play, they could have pitched the ball, and that would have been a touchdown, and they would have had an opportunity to go for 2. Because, to be quite honest with you, the Packers didn't really look impressive on the first half. They only scored 7 points, and then in the third quarter, they did get those 2 touchdowns. But outside of that, Chicago's defense relatively kept them in check. Offensively, you know, Chicago just failed to go anywhere, all right? Mitch Trubisky had 53 pass attempts, threw for 334 yards, but 2 INTs, 1 TD. On the ground, the run game was virtually non-existent. Montgomery, 39 yards. Trubisky ran for 28 himself. Tariq Cohen had 28. But the pass game was working, but there just wasn't enough plays that was made. Robinson was over 100. Miller was over 100. But Trubisky just didn't make enough plays to win this game. All right? For Green Bay, Rodgers was 16 for 33, 203 yards, and a TD on the ground. Jones did go into the end zone twice, but he only had 51 yards on the ground. His runs were not very impactful throughout the day, and through the air, Devontae Adams had 7 catches, 103 yards, but still, this was a game that Chicago could have won, and they were fighting to keep their playoff hopes alive, and ultimately, they lost, took that L, and it sucks for Bears fans, because coming into this season, they thought they could replicate what it was last year, but the 2018 Bears and 2019 Bears was kind of like the 2015 Vikings 2016 Vikings, but granted, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater did end up getting hurt, but still, it was one of those teams that you felt could have made a playoff push, but unfortunately, a kick did not go in their favor, and here they are, missing the postseason the following season. It's unfortunate. For the Packers, this was a big-time win, must-win, given that they're going to have a showdown next week with Minnesota, and most likely that will decide the division. But then again, there's another game to be played in Week 17. But whoever wins between those two, they'll take the lead. So, tough loss for Chicago, man. Tough loss for Chicago. But granted, you're going into Lambeau Field. What did you expect? It's kind of hard to beat Aaron Rodgers at home. But, yeah, good victory for the Packers. Patriots taking on Bengals. The first half seemed interesting. It was a close game. And then the Bengals did what the Bengals always do, and that's a way to bangle themselves out of W's. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, 2 INTs. Dalton threw 4 INTs in total. The other man who caught the picks for the J.C. Jackson caught 2 INTs. I forgot his name. I was going to say something else. I knew the last name was Jackson. I think I was going to say Kareem Jackson. He doesn't even play for them. But there's a Kareem Jackson who ended up catching the pick. I think he plays for Houston. I know he must have left Houston. Where does he play now? I don't know where Kareem Jackson's at. All I know is that the man caught a pick like last week, so it was on the top of my tongue. But regardless, the Bengals could not get anything done in that second half. And more importantly, Rex Burkhead took somebody's ankles. I don't know if it was Williams back there, whoever the hell's ankles he took. That's how the white man runs the football. Homie hit a stutter step, gave this man the wiggle, and went into the end zone. I think it was like a 33-yard TD. It was beautiful. All right, Tom Brady, 15 of 29, 128 yards, 2 TDs through the air. Sony Michel had 89 yards on the ground, and the Bengals continued to do Bengals things and ended up with that L. Good victory for New England. Showdown to cement the division next week in Foxborough between New England and Buffalo. So that's going to be a game that a lot of people are not going to want to miss. In fact, it's going to be Saturday. So since all 3 of those games are going to be on the network, I believe everybody will have an opportunity to see it. It should be categorized as prime time. In fact, I think it will be prime time. So big time game for the AFC North. I'm very excited. AFC East. I'm very excited to see how that plays out. But a good victory for New England. Seattle taking on the Panthers. Oh my Lord! Wow. What can be said about this game? Kyle Allen. 3 INTs. 25 for 41, 277 yards through the air, but he did have a situation in which I believe it was 3 picks. No, he threw 2 picks in, was it 4 plays? Because there was a sequence where there was 3 consecutive interceptions. It was a Kyle Allen pick, and then a Flash Gordon pick, and then another Kyle Allen pick. It's just bad, and apparently they benched Kyle Allen, and now Will Grier will be getting the start in Week 16. Carolina, wow, they had their control of their playoff destiny. They were 5-4, and I don't think they've won a game since. They're currently sitting at 5-9. They're just like the Indianapolis Colts. You had an opportunity to continue to keep pace in that wild card, and then, as Adam Sandler would say, you blew it. You blew it. It was bad from the start. If you looked at the Carolina Panthers, Twitter, you'd see that they said QB1 in reference to Cam Newton. After all them talks about, hey, possibly Cam Newton might be leaving, time to pump the brakes, man. Cam Newton might not be going anywhere. I'll say this much for Seattle. Russell Wilson went out there, took care of business. 20 for 26, 286 yards, and 2 TDs. The only INT came from Josh Gordon, who just been suspended indefinitely. That's unfortunate for him. On the ground, Chris Carson, 133 yards and 2 TDs. I was a little bit concerned at how Chris Carson will play without having the 1-2 punch with him and Rashad Penny, but we've seen Chris Carson run very well by himself last year. Can attest to that. I believe he went over 1,000. So I'm very excited for the Seattle team moving forward. They take the lead in their division because San Francisco lost last week to Atlanta. I'll touch on that in a little bit. But good game for the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey once again is the bright spot with 87 yards on the ground and 2 TDs, and then 88 yards through the air. DJ Moore had 113 yards through the air. I think he's over 1,000 now. I think he's like top 5 in receiving yards thus far this season too. That's very interesting. But still, good game. Oh, no, I don't think he's top 5. I think he's just over 1,000. Whatever the case may be. Good game, good victory for the Seattle Seahawks. Next, Texans taking on the Titans. I didn't see this one coming. I thought in Tennessee, Tennessee would take care of business. We did see the Texans jump out to a 14-0 lead going into the halftime, and then we saw Tennessee even it up in the fourth quarter. But then Houston they scored 10 unanswered, took that 24-14 lead, and did not squander that lead. I mean, Tennessee did get a late touchdown to Dion Lewis, but it was a little bit too late to make that comeback. On the day, Carlos Hyde went over 100 yards. Deshaun Watson, he did have those 2 picks, but he was 19 of 27, 243 yards, 2 TDs. DeAndre Hopkins over 119 yards. Very good game for that Texans offense. And for the Titans, on the ground, Derrick Henry, 21 carries, 86 yards. Usually with Derrick Henry, when you keep giving him above 20 carries, you're going to get one of those big-time explosive runs, one of those runs where he imposes his will on defense. That did not happen this particular game. Tannehill did bring them back, 22 of 36, 279, 2 TDs, but again, like I said, it was just a little bit too late. A.J. Brown, 8 catches, 114 yards, and the TD, but Tennessee just did not have enough to, make that comeback down the stretch. It's unfortunate, but luckily for them, they can right their wrongs in 2 weeks as they go to NRG Stadium and take on the Texans. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out. That most likely will be for the division. If Tennessee loses this particular week, I think that can complicate things. But big time win for the Texans, a win that they desperately needed after losing to Denver the week before. All right, Giants taking on the Dolphins. This was Eli Manning's final home game. Good win for the Giants. Saquon Barkley finally got out of that funk that he's had since that ankle injury. He had 24 carries, 112 yards, and 2 TDs. Eli Manning did everything in Eli Manning's power to possibly, Eli Manning his way out of this victory with 3 INTs, but he was able to find pay dirt twice, throwing 2 touchdowns, one to Darius Slayton, one to Golden Tate on a ridiculous ricocheted pass. And what shocked me was the fact that Golden Tate only had 1 catch, and it was that ridiculous catch for that touchdown. But Eli Manning was 20 of 28, 283 yards and 2 TDs, but plus those 3 INTs. But good victory for him. He desperately needed it. He's back at 500 on his career, so we'll see how he plays out the final 2 games. If he'll be one of those quarterbacks that retire and doesn't have a above 500 record, or he retires exactly 500, which that would be fitting for Eli Manning. But for the Dolphins, tough loss. But I'll say this much. Their coach, I believe it's Brian Flores. I think that's what his name is. If I pronounce it wrong, I apologize. I like this guy, man. I hope he doesn't get fired. You can see the passion in how he coaches that team. And even after they lost, the man's still fired up. Regardless of whether they win, whether they lose, this man is fired up. You know what? Give this guy an opportunity, man. Don't get rid of this guy. I like him. I like him a lot. But a good victory for the Giants. Eagles, Redskins. I can't even lie to you. This was one of those games when I saw the Redskins take the 27-24 lead, I thought the game was over. I honestly thought the game was over. I was watching this game that was going towards its final couple of minutes, and I believe there was a game that was starting at 4 something. I think it was maybe it was San Fran and Atlanta. Whichever game just started, I switched the channel. I said, you know what? It seems like the Eagles gonna lose. All of a sudden, my phone starts vibrating like, yo, Carson Wentz is putting together a drive. I'm like, what? All of a sudden, this man goes 8 for 8 down the field, finds Greg Ward, who told Josh Norman to hold his Nuggets. Suck my dick! In the end zone, the Eagles took the lead and then proceeded to score after the lateral game failed for the Redskins. They scored 2 TDs in 37 seconds. I said, wait a minute, man. This Eagles team, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You talk about fighting till the end to keep pace with the Cowboys, who got a big time W, I might add. But this Eagles team, man, and I told you guys, I have the Eagles winning the NFC East. Now, whoever the hell wins the NFC East, I think they're going to get blown out by San Fran in the first round of the playoffs. But still, this Eagles team got fight. As depleted as they are, they continue to have fight. Doug Peterson got balls, kid. Balls. All right, Carson Wentz on the day, 30 of 43, 266 yards, 3 TDs. On the ground, Miles Sanders, this was very impressive. 19 carries, 122 yards, and that TD. And then through the air, Zach Ertz obviously had to find the end zone. But then that big time touchdown to Greg Ward, that was beautiful. Absolute beautiful ball placement from Carson Wentz, because he hung it up there. He hung it up there. And hell of a play made by Ward, man. And Josh Norman, once again, we see why this man is absolutely basura. I don't know why he's a starting cornerback in the NFL. Matter of fact, pardon me. He'd be able to start on any team. Let me not say any team. He would not start in New England. But he shouldn't be paid as high as he is. But granted, you can't go erase the man's contract. You're just not going to pay him again. But for the Redskins, I was impressed at how they played, all right? Adrian Peterson had 66 yards, passed. He tied Walter Payton for 4th all-time on touchdown runs, and he passed Curtis Martin for 5th all-time in rushing yards. Dwayne Haskins looked good, all right, 19 of 28, 261 yards and 2 TDs. Terry McLaurin, who I think will be a beast in this league, 5 catches, 130 yards, and a 75-yard TD. I believe that was to him. So that was absolute beautiful game by the Redskins, but in the end, their defense collapsed, man. Kudos to the Eagles. I did not see that coming. I can't even lie to you. I literally switched the channel. I'm the person who says the game ain't over until the 000 hits. But when I saw that field goal go through the uprights, I said, man, this game, perhaps it's over. I did not know the Eagles had that fight in them. And you know what? They went out there and fly, Eagles fly, for another week. And we're going to see what happens. Lincoln Financial Field, big time showdown for the NFC East. I think this game is going to be, shades of what we saw back in the 2008 season, where the Eagles hung like 43 to like 3 in the week 17. But we'll talk about it in the pregame commentary. But big time win for those Eagles. Broncos and Chiefs. This game wasn't even close. All right, it was snowing out there in Arrowhead. You saw the Broncos pick up a big-time win on the road in Houston, only to come out to Kansas City and get stomped. They had no chance from the opening snap. Drew Lock looked like an absolute beast over the course of 2 weeks with defeating the Chargers and also taking out the Texans. And then he got brought back down to earth. The Chiefs defense came out there and said, whoa, pump the brakes. And Drew Lock went 18 for 40, 208 yards and an INT. There was virtually no run game whatsoever. Offensively, they could not move the football effectively. And the Chiefs just made more plays. Tyreek Hill found the end zone twice. Patrick Mahomes connected with Kelsey 11 times for 142 yards. And might I add, Kelsey, I believe he just passed Greg Olsen for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons for a tight end. And as I've constantly said, Travis Kelce's the best tight end in the league because consistency is everything. How long have you been doing it? Kittle's a beast, but it's only 2 years. Zach Ertz is a beast. It's only about 2 to 3 years. There's no question about how good Kelsey was. We were talking about Kelsey or Gronk. How the hell we just going to start certain other people in there talking, yeah, this person, but nah. Gronk gone. Kelsey got that torch, man. Best tight end in the league. And Patrick Mahomes, 2 TDs, 27 to 34, extremely efficient, 340 yards. He did have that lone INT, but still, it's too easy for Patrick Mahomes. Why? Because it's for real estate. Good victory for the Kansas City Chiefs, who have already clinched, that playoff spot because they won the AFC West. So, big time W for those guys, man. Big time W. They definitely needed that. Continue to win at home. They're going to have that home playoff game. So whoever the hell they see, and more importantly, they got to keep pace with the Patriots. Because if the Patriots do take an L next week, that would now send Kansas City into the first round bye. So they cannot afford to take any L's moving forward as long as the Patriots are still playing. Meaning that until week 17, there's a guarantee that the Patriots have to keep their starters playing in order to take that first round bye. So for Kansas City, they got to keep that momentum going. But good victory for those guys. Browns, before I get into the Browns and Cardinals, Buccaneers and Lions. Jameis Winston, 4-1. Somebody sent me the statistics. I see it was on CBS Sports. He threw an interception 5 times on the opening drive. The Buccaneers are 4-1 in this game. So maybe Jameis Winston throwing a pick on the first drive is just to get the other team's hopes up. Just to crash them down. All right? Second consecutive 450-plus yard day 4 TDs as well. Jameis is balling. How many times I gotta keep telling you guys this? I believe in Jameis Winston if he could get his head out of his gluteal cleft and stop cooking up apple turnovers. Alright, I said at the beginning of the season, I believe Bruce Arians will be the person who gives Jameis Winston that come to Jesus moment where this man says, wait a minute, maybe I don't have to keep throwing so many picks. I believe in Jameis, man. I think he can bring this team to new heights. Okay, I think he can get the Buccaneers to the playoffs. Obviously not this season because they've been mathematically eliminated. But still, they're sitting at 500, 7-7. Jameis has only had over 500 in his career. I think his second season they were 9-7. But hey, he's number 2 in the league in touchdown passes, number 1 in INTs. I think he's number 1 in passing yards right now, passing Dak. So he's taking care of business, man. On the ground, there is no run game in Tampa. As I've constantly said, get this man a running game that's consistent. The most consistent running game he ever had was, I believe it was Doug Martin, and that was here and there because Martin kept getting hurt. On the day, Godwin went over 100. Perriman had 3 TDs, and he was over 100 as well. So hell of a game for the Bucs. For the Lions, David Blau was at the helm once again, 2 INTs, virtually no run game whatsoever. We did see Amendola go over 100, but it did not really mean anything. So good victory for Tampa. I'd say if they can close out this season at either 8-8, 9-7, that can give them some kind of confidence going into next year. I believe Tampa can be something special, man. Gotta fix that defense, get a run game. Easier said than done. Alright, easier said than done. But I believe in Todd Bowles. I believe in Bruce Arians. And I'm telling you, Tampa is just like Oakland in my opinion. They're a couple of years away. They got the right coaching staff around. Get the right players, they can be something special. And I promise you that. They can be something special. A couple years from now, you're going to be wondering, yo, we thought Jameis was a bum. He's going to show you why he's not a bum. I believe in Jameis, man. I believe in Jameis. I believe in Tampa. But in the future, they're going to have to prove me right. Right now, obviously, they're already in that death note. Nothing that can happen. Speaking of people in the death note, the Tampa, pardon me, the Cardinals, I was going to say the St. Louis Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals taking down the Cleveland Browns, where we saw the 2018 Heisman Trophy winner defeated the 2017 Heisman Trophy winner, while the 2016, no, we're not going to go 2016 Heisman Trophy winner, but we'll talk about the first round pick of the 2016 season was sitting at home, kind of in a straitjacket in a room of helmets because you know how dangerous he could be. But we saw the Cardinals take down the Browns 38-24. What was the story of this game? Kenyon, I only watched Degrassi for the attempted murder of Drake, rubbed his nutsack all over the Cleveland Browns. 4 TDs, 137 yards on the ground. Kyler Murray was efficient on my ad as well. 19 of 25, 219 yards, 1 TD, 1 INT. All right, they went out there and they took care of business. Defensively, they took care of business too. Baker Mayfield had an INT. Nick Chubb did have over 100 yards, but for some apparent reason, Baker Mayfield threw the football 43 times. I'm not understanding. If something is working, why the hell would you take a step away from it? We've seen all season, when Nick Chubb gets going, the Browns can win football games. But for some apparent reason, Freddie Kitchen says, yo, we're going to play through Baker Mayfield. You saw Jarvis Landry. You saw OBJ on the sideline. Cups of the rose, bitches in my oval. I should call one and go home. They were sad on the sidelines because once again, they lose it. In fact, with this loss, the Browns became the first team to not have a winning season in the decade. All right? In the entire decade. That's atrocious. Okay, terrible. OBJ, we heard rumors of him telling the Steelers or him telling different organizations, come get me. We heard Jarvis Landry talking to Arizona saying, hey, come get me. A lot of frustration in Cleveland. Kareem Hunt now raising his voice, talking to people inside of the locker room here and there saying, hey, this is how you kick a kicking net. Whatever the case may be, this Browns team, it just needs a complete revamping. Get rid of the coaches. Get rid of, some of the players. Just change this entire culture, man. Change the entire culture. Until Cleveland's front office is fixed, they'll never go anywhere. But for the Cardinals, this was a much-needed win. All right, and I believe this is one of those wins that can continue to build confidence for this team. Right now, their record, they're sitting at, 4-9-1, but this could have easily messed around and been a 6-18, 7-19, because a good number of the Cardinals games did come down to the wire. So, man, I believe in Kyler. I think he can go out there and not only inform people that he's not only an Arizona midget, not only is he bigger than a fifth grader, he can win you some football games. I can't wait to see how he plays later in his career. But Kenyon Drake, way to rub your nutsack all over the Browns. Good victory for the Cardinals. Jaguars taking on the Raiders in the final game in the Negro Vagina Black Hole. I'll say this much. I did not foresee that the Raiders would collapse in the final minutes. I did not see that coming. All right? There was about 2 minutes left to play. You saw Derek Carr pick up what should have been the game-clinching first down. And then what happened? They failed to move the football. Jacksonville gets the football back. And then you see Gardner Minshew go down the field and put it into the end zone. Gardner Minshew on the day, 17 of 29, 201 yards, 2 TDs. Needless to say, I believe he will be the starting quarterback moving forward for the Jacksonville Jaguars next year. I know they're going to do like a quarterback competition between Nick Foles and also Gardner Minshew. Or, hey, they might mess around and trade Nick Foles away in the offseason. Whatever the case may be, if Nick Foles was a mess around and end up back in Philly, that'd be hilarious. But Gardner Minshew is going to be the future for this Jaguars team. It seems like this team is way more exciting when he's starting at quarterback. Leonard Fournette ain't give you too much on the ground, only 42 yards. You had a great defensive front in the fourth quarter, at least for Jacksonville, in which they were down. To be quite honest, they were down 16-3. 16-6. And then what happens? 4 TDs. 14 points. 2 TDs. The Jags was able to go down the field, get into the end zone, and win the game. The Raiders collapsed. This is exactly what you see from those Gruden grinds. What the hell was that? As Stephen A. Smith would say, what the hell was that? How you lose that way in the last game out there? Derek Vehicle was 22 of 36, 267 yards and a TD. Josh Jacobs had 89 yards on the ground. Darren Waller, who should have went to the Pro Bowl for the AFC. Sorry, Mark Andrews. I know you got 8 touchdowns, but Darren Waller has been the best tight end in outside of Travis Kelce in the AFC. I think Waller should have got that nod for the Pro Bowl. But how the hell do you lose this game? This is what John Gruden teams end up doing. Remember, they had control of their destiny. They were sitting at 6-5. And what happens? 3 consecutive losses. Hell, it could be 4 consecutive losses. Whatever the case may be, the Raiders, they in that death note now. Matter of fact, no, I think they still have a little bit of life. I think something has to fall the right way in order for them to make the playoffs. But if they're not in the death note already, Akira is licking. He's licking the pen. He's about getting ready to put you inside that death note. But good victory for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vikings taking on the Chargers. And now no charges. No. 8 turnovers on the day. If you count the turnover on down. But 7 turnovers on the day. They didn't stand a damn chance. Melvin Gordon on the ground twice gave the football away. Freaking Phillip Rivers, 3 INTs on the day. It was just apple turnovers left and right, and the Vikings took care of business. And I told you guys, I had a little bit of cause to pause about this Vikings team because they were 3-4 on the road, undefeated at home. I thought perhaps the Chargers would be able to get them after, taking care of business against Jacksonville, but damn it, that was not the case. That was not the case. Minnesota walked in. Kirk family member, 19 of 25, a TD, INT. Boone had 2 TDs, 56 yards. All right. Stephon Diggs, 4 catches, 76 yards. And ultimately, the Vikings defense was the name of the game. Took the football out of the hands of Phillip Anti-Condom, no pull-out Poppy Rivers. This man kept turning the football over. They kept punching the football out of the hands of the Vikings run game. They stripped Phillip Rivers as well. This was just beautiful from start to finish for the Vikings. I honestly cannot I can't express how bad this must have been for Chargers fans watching this necrophilia. Vikings took care of business from the opening whistle until the closing whistle. It never felt as if the Chargers had a chance whatsoever. Absolute necrophilia. They got beat up. Period. Rams taking on the Cowboys. I didn't see this one coming. And now, let's go Cowboys, go. We got thick. I'm Amari Cooper, Dathan Witten, one-hand catch. Wait up, boys. We're going to win the NFC East next week, and then we go into the Super Bowl. Good victory for the Dallas Cowboys. You talk about going out there and slinging it. Dak Prescott, 15 of 23, 212 yards, 2 TDs. But what made the game, Pollard was over 100, Zeke was over 100, 3 touchdowns from both these running backs. Sensational game. As I was saying, the Cowboys took care of business. Tavon Austin was wide open on, I don't know if there was a broken coverage on that 59-yard TD. Jason Witten with that beautiful, one-hand catch for the TD. Dallas controlled the clock. They had the ball in their hands constantly. We saw Jared Goff throw an INT, and the failure to run the football. Todd Gurley, 11 carries, 20 yards, and the TD. That's atrocious. You only had 22 yards in total in rushing because Jared Goff also had an additional 2. So it became a Goff passing game, and I've told you guys countless times, I do not believe if the game becomes a passing attack from Jared Goff, I do not have faith that the Rams will be able to walk away with the W. And that's exactly what happened. They lost by 3 scores. All right, Jared Goff was 33 of 51, 284 yards, and 2 TDs. But also that 1 INT and the failure to get the running game going showcased itself. And what do we see the Cowboys do? They jumped out to like a 24, I think it was 28-3 lead in the first half. It was ridiculous. These guys were murdering those guys, man. It was a 28-7, pardon me. 28-7 lead going into the third quarter. I thought the Cowboys were going to jump out to, an early lead, and then we see the Rams come back, take the lead, and then we see the Cowboys offense continue to be stagnant. That wasn't the case at all. Dallas came out and played as if this was their last game and this was their Super Bowl. And damn it, they played sensational, man. You cannot take that away from them. Cowboys got a big-time W in Jerry World, and now they got to travel to Lincoln Financial Field, take on the Eagles for the division. So that's gonna be a big time game. I can't wait to talk about that one tomorrow. But good victory for the Cowboys. For the Rams, wow, that was tough because they definitely needed this to keep pace with Minnesota, to keep that the hopes alive for the wild card. Now we'll have to see what happens. I think if Minnesota wins another game, they can pretty much lock up that last wild card. Yeah, I think if they win another game, they should pretty much lock up that last wild card. So for the Rams, they need a lot of help right now. Falcons defeating the 49ers, scoring 2 TDs in 2 seconds. I'll tell you this much. Let me just break down the statistics. Matt Ryan, 25 of 39. 210 and 2 TDs. There was virtually no run game for the Falcons. Julio Jones, explosion kind of day. 13 catches, 134 yards, and 2 TDs. For the Jimmy G, porn star Jimmy G, that is, 22 of 34, 200 yards, a TD. The ground game, Mostert, 54 yards, and the TD. But the name of the game was that final drive. All right, we saw Atlanta get down the field. You saw the touchdown to Austin Hooper get reversed, which it rightfully should have been reversed. Then they had another opportunity. Matt Ryan connects with Julio Jones, giving them the lead. This was a little bit of my concern about the 49ers defense, because you saw New Orleans go out there and hang 40 on them. We've seen this defense that should have been, a very elite. They played very good against Baltimore, but I'm still a little bit concerned about this defense. Now, granted, when you play against a team that has a very, very good receiver, it seems as if they struggle. All right, Richard Sherman is one of the best, cornerbacks of all time, but he's not his old self. All right, so I think, if you have a good receiver, you can take advantage of this San Francisco defense. Now, you're not going to get too much rushing yards against them, but I believe you can throw the football if you give your quarterback time, and that's exactly what we saw. Julio Jones and Matt Ryan was owning this game down to that last drive with that touchdown where he was just able to break the plane. It was a hell of an effort. For the 49ers, they needed this W, especially after Seattle lost last week. You had an opportunity to continue to build that separation. Now it's truly going to come down to that Week 17 matchup. And as I told you guys a lot of times, I believe Seattle will win this division and beat, the 49ers in Week 17. This was a very tough game. A lot of people did not expect Atlanta to go out there and play that well. As I constantly say, I believe Atlanta's better than their record. A couple of things just did not roll their way. You had injuries here and there, but this is a team that's way better than their record, man. Offensively, they can still go out there and bowl. But I was impressed by Atlanta's defense being able to corral, Jimmy G and that offensive powerhouse of, them going out there running the football well over 100 yards. Jimmy G, Emmanuel Sanders, since he showed up, has been playing absolute, masterclass football. But that wasn't the case on this particular Sunday. And it was a hell of a victory for the Falcons, 29-22. And again, those 2 TDs in 2 seconds, I think that's an NFL record. So that was a hell of a game. Colts and Saints, necrophilia from start to finish. The Colts could not convert on a 3rd down, and when they did and get into Saints territory, they simply did not have things go their way. Their opening drive ended up halting on a blocked, punt, where we saw Drew Brees' Jesus find his man in the end zone, and more importantly, Brees only had 1 incomplete pass. He was 29 of 30, 307 yards, and 4 TDs. He broke Peyton Manning's record for the most touchdown passes all time. I think right now he's sitting at 541. Tom Brady is 3 behind him, but it's a hell of an effort from the Saints. This was something that they definitely needed. Alvin Kamara didn't have to do too much. Taysom Hill lowered the shoulder on somebody and said, I'm a grown man. The Colts needed this victory here to keep pace in the AFC, but ultimately them losing forced themselves to be written down to Death Note, and there, the playoff hopes have been absolutely deleted. They were 6-4, and they lost 4 consecutive. As I said, offensively, they can do absolutely nothing, and this was a masterclass performance from the Saints from start to finish, winning 34-7. I mean, what more can you say? What more can you say? Drew Brees, in my opinion, is without question a top 5 quarterback of all time. You can make an argument for a top 3 because I think that's occupied by Peyton Manning, Joe Montana. Pardon me. Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, and Tom Brady. I think they operate. They occupy that top 3 spot. But yeah, you can make the argument Drew Brees can even get into that top 3 spot. But hell, it's a hell of a performance, hell of a career. So happy for this man, and I believe, as I said before, either New Orleans or Green Bay will represent the NFC in the postseason. And last but not least, the Steelers taking on the Buffalo Bills in Heinz Field. Color rush jerseys on this Pittsburgh Steelers shoulder pads. And what do we see? The Buffalo Bills took care of business. They said enough of your Heinz ketchup and Buffalo Wild Wings, and walked away with a 10-17 lead, 10-17 win. I'll say this much: this was a defensive chess match. All right, Sean McDermott and Mike Tomlin's teams were going back and forth, battling each other. And I'll say this: I was very impressed by how Buffalo's defense, continually took the football out of the hands of Devlin Hodges. 4 INTs on the day, 5 turnovers in total for Pittsburgh. There were a couple of bonehead offensive plays that were called, like, for example, the gadget play out of Wildcat with James Conner and Deontay Johnson after a Steven Nelson interception. Camera cut off. That was very bizarre. But as I was saying, I'm not quite understanding why Fichtner thought having James Conner only have 8 carries on the day. That did not really make much sense, because every single time he touched the football, he had a bit of electricity, behind him. Maybe it was because he was so fired up coming back and having his first game in about over a month. So the Pittsburgh's offensive woes really came back to haunt them. Tre'Davious White with 2 INTs, and Devlin Hodges, his performance was very subpar. 3 INTs entirely being his fault. The first one, hell of a play by Tre'Davious White, but the second one, he threw the pass inside on an out route, and any quarterback should know you never throw a pass inside on an out route because it's going to get picked, and that led to a Buffalo, field goal. And outside of that that drive in the 4th quarter, I believe, when Buffalo took the 17-10 lead, coming off of that Tre'Davious, it was coming off of the that was bizarre. Camera just cut off out of nowhere. But as I was saying, it was kind of asinine to go out there and run a trick play, 1st and goal, under 2 minutes left to play before halftime. Should have just went with your gut, just hand the football off to James Conner, who only had 8 carries on the day. That was very confusing. I wasn't quite sure why that was. Every single time he touched the football, he appeared to have a bit of electricity, coming out of his skin. The man made plays. He made positive plays every time he touched the football, and then he did not get as many snaps. That was very confusing. But Buffalo, offensively, they didn't look too impressive. Outside of that one drive from when they started in their own field position on their own territory, and they had that 50-yard bomb to John Brown that resulted in Josh Allen connecting with his tight end when they took the 17-10 lead. Outside of that, their only 2 scoring drives was on short yardage, or I should say on a short field, where we saw Pittsburgh have that Jordan Berry 20-yard punt that resulted in a touchdown for Josh Allen after I think a beautiful run by Devin Singletary, where he took Stephen Nelfon's ankles. And then their field goal drive was set up from another Tre'Davious White interception where Devlin Hodges threw it inside on an out route. So offensively, I mean, the Buffalo Bills ain't do too much, but Pittsburgh's offensive ineptitude truly shined through in this game. And this was a game that they honestly could have won, but then the Duck just did not, understand, hey, crunch time, I got to make these sort of plays. Because even when he took the sack on the final drive, spike the football and conserve yourself some time. He rushed to the line, told people plays on the line of scrimmage, then proceeded to throw up a duck into the end zone that got picked. Had he threw it a little bit deeper towards the back of the end zone, he could have connected with James Washington. And even the drive before, on the 3rd pick, he had Washington on a crossing route going towards the right, but he stared down the left-hand side of the field. Shades of a young quarterback, but it was a hell of a game by Buffalo. This was a defensive chess match between McDermott and Mike Tomlin. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but, big-time W for the Buffalo Bills, clinching, that final, or I should say clinching a playoff spot. And hell, they can possibly contend and get that AFC East crown for the first time since I think like 96, maybe 97, whatever the case may be. Good victory for the Buffalo Bills and every team that did walk away with a W this past week. But this has been your 2019 NFL Week 15 post-game analysis show. I have been your host, the diligent, vigilant, meticulous, sagacious, conscientious, analytical, methodical individual, the Chiseled Adonis. Sitting here in this car, it's getting actually kind of cold now. The heat has since subsided. The goosebumps, or I should say, they're welling up on my skin, so I gotta get inside. I had a pepper a little bit earlier. That is messing with my stomach. Perhaps I have to go release some fecal matter from the inside of my bowels. Whatever the case may be, I will catch you guys tomorrow for the pregame, so stay tuned for that. And I will be going live on Hot Mic on Saturday and on Sunday. Plus, I'm going to the Pittsburgh Steelers game, playing against the New York Jets in MetLife Stadium. All right, so I'll keep you guys brief. I'm going to do a little bit of a giveaway of 1 ticket, so I'll let you guys know in the future videos within the next 3 days. But yeah, I'll catch you guys on the prediction show tomorrow, so I'll see you then.